Hey there, Gamerinos and Gamerinas. Welcome to UnicornStorm and welcome to another Fooling Around. This is Rady, and today I've got Little Nightmares 2 for you. I've played the first game and I was really impressed by it. The game was packed with atmosphere, and the biggest contributor to that was the insane art style. Everything, from the environments to the characters, just looked crooked and weird. Enemies had weird proportions and even weirder faces, they moved unnatural. The game world looked old and neglected, slowly decaying, but still full of detail. It strongly reminded me of stop-motion movies like Coraline or Nightmare Before Christmas. And that style, that atmosphere, was the main appeal of the first game. And now we have a second entry in the series, which tries to continue the legacy. Does it succeed? I guess. But yeah, you might have noticed just now that I'm not fully convinced by this game. First off, it looks beautiful. As beautiful as the first game. We get to explore a ton of highly detailed environments that all look familiar, but in a strange and uncanny way. Even normal things, like shelves and chairs and kitchenware, seem a little bit off. Floors and walls look dirty and moldy. Dried up splatters of some unknown liquid cover many surfaces. Unidentifiable hunks of flesh are stored in pots and bowls. Lifeless puppets await you in dark corners. And don't get me started on the living puppets. This whole world is an embodiment of the macabre. It is a nightmarescape. And well, that is what the developers were going for. We get to explore a variety of different environments. Each level takes us to a new place. We get to see creepy houses, creepy schools, creepy hospitals, lush forests, and abandoned backstreets. There is a lot of beauty in this game, even though most of it is intentionally horrifying. So, the sequel got that aspect right. For the most part. It seems this game is a lot darker in a lot more places than the first game, and uses a lot of blue and grey and black, whereas the first game wasn't afraid to put all the creepy stuff in bright, well-lit areas. It's not really a bad thing, it's just something I noticed. The game is structured in a similar way to the first game. Your character, this time he's called Mono. He wakes up and we don't really know what's going on. For the most part, the game is a straight line from left to right, and most of the world is hostile towards the player. So we sneak around and hide and look for objects that help us move forward. Each level has a sort of main antagonist who needs to be avoided and might stalk us or outright chase us. And at the end of each level we barely escape them or gruesomely kill them. The levels themselves aren't really connected narratively. We just stumble from one to the other. And the overarching story is loose at best. There is more room for interpretation than there's an actual story. But this approach works quite well with these games. Every new monstrous enemy you encounter, every new strange environment you discover, gets your mind racing. What is this place? What happened here? Where do these people come from and what are they doing here? Why is everything so weird? There is no explanation needed, because nothing can satisfy the ideas that you yourself will come up with. You will spend a lot of time observing these frightening creatures and disturbing scenes, while trying to stay hidden and looking for a way to get out of there. And your options to achieve that aren't too complicated. Your character can walk or run or crouch. He can jump and grab objects or onto ledges. And for the most part, that's it. And you don't need anything more than that. Puzzles are designed to use a whole lot of different and creative techniques to interact with your core moveset, so that every challenge feels fresh and the gameplay never becomes stale. Sometimes you have to find a key. Sometimes you have to carry an object from one place to another. Other times you have to move a box or something like that to climb up higher. And sometimes you just have to carefully maneuver around obstacles. During some of these puzzles, you're quite safe and have all the time you need. During some of them, you're working against the clock, and sometimes there might even be enemies in the room. When you step into a new room, you're never quite sure what will happen next. And almost every time, you will be surprised. So overall, I got what I expected and wanted from the game. And with that, we can get into the problems I have with this entry. The game is riddled with trial and error. That's not always a bad thing, and often enough, it's fun to watch your character die to some trap or enemy ambush or something like that. Like in Limbo, or even in the first game. The first game had a lot of instances where you didn't really know what was expected of you, where it wasn't clear how to proceed, and every wrong step resulted in instant death. Most of the time, with a checkpoint nearby. This game though cranks it up to 11. There seem to be more hidden traps that instantly kill you, reaction windows are tighter, and you have instances where you have to maneuver around a bunch of death zones, and due to a lot of visual chaos on screen, it's not clear where it is safe to step on. And don't get me wrong, I do not have a problem with trial and error, as long as it's implemented well. And a lot of times, it is in this game. But then we also have instances where you have to slowly move through a pretty long challenge, and one wrong step sends you back all the way. We're not talking about losing hours of gameplay, but it's still annoying as hell when you have to redo a slow section full of waiting. I don't believe you can just put in more checkpoints, but maybe just give the player more chances to escape the enemy. I've had moments where the enemies seemed to notice me, but I got away in time, and so they kinda went back to their routine and I was able to continue forward. But as soon as the enemy is in chase mode or whatever you will call it, then it's over. They will catch you and you will be sent back to the checkpoint. But these moments aren't the worst offenders. Oh no. The worst aspect of this game is the combat. So in addition to the main antagonist in each stage that kills you in one hit, there are now smaller enemies you will encounter that will kill you in one hit. You can't always avoid them, so you'll get the option to defend yourself against them. And by that I mean you'll get the horrible option to engage with the clunky combat system to try to dispose of them. Whenever the game forces you into a combat segment, you will find a weapon lying around that you can pick up like any other object. But instead of throwing the weapon, you now have a unique attack animation, which is slow and needs a moment to wind up. And during that animation, your character is bolted to the ground and can't evade, so you're constantly at the mercy of the AI, which isn't merciful at all. Enemies chase or ambush you, and if their hitbox just grazes yours while they are in their attack animation, they'll kill you instantly. So you have to wait for the right moment to strike, measuring in the time it takes for your attack to wind up, and then hope you actually hit these fuckers in the right spot. And that there's nothing in your way or around you, or your attack will bounce off something and you'll get hit instead. In the end, it comes down to memory, to know when and where and how the enemies will attack. It just doesn't always work like that, because sometimes enemies need a bit longer to charge up their attack, and sometimes they'll attack immediately. And as with other challenges, there are times when you have to kill a lot of enemies before you reach a new checkpoint. And if you fuck up just once, you'll get sent back. And you can't rely on your knowledge of the enemy positions and something like that, because maybe this time around they'll just do something else. And the game loves to spring just one last bullshit trap right before the end of a segment, just to mess with you, I guess. It functions well enough to sneak up on enemies, but everything else just isn't fun. The game would have been perfectly fine without a janky combat system. Okay, getting to better things before I finish this up. Quite early in the game, we'll meet up with Six, from the first game. She's an NPC now, but I guess it's fine, because she's here to help us. This time we'll encounter a lot of puzzles and challenges where we need the help of Six to open doors, push heavy objects, or use some more complex methods to move items around or open new paths. And even though it's heavily scripted, it leads to a pretty good dynamic between Mono and Six. She helps you to reach higher places, you open doors for her, she even deals with some enemies. Or distracts them so you can sneak up on them. She picks up items on her own and carries them after you so you don't have to do all the work. And by doing that, she sometimes might even give you a hint. And this doesn't come off as patronizing, but more so as an organic and natural way to solve a puzzle. Like she's really there, trying to help you, trying to solve this thing as much as you do. And it's just so cute when she's running around with a little wooden ducky. And you really come to feel it when she's missing. Every time she's with you, you're working together, you're supporting each other, you keep each other alive. But when you're alone, everything's hostile again. It works really well. So, in conclusion, Little Nightmares 2 is a fun game. It's as visually appealing or appalling as the first game, with a ton of unique and creative environments and character designs. You will have to find your way through horrifying challenges, and you get to experience the strange and beautiful madness of this world. If you can deal with all the jank. The trial and error isn't always fun, and the combat system sucks ass. But it's still a worthwhile experience. I'm not quite sure if I like it as much as the first game, but if you did enjoy the first game, I can recommend this to you, even if the gameplay is a bit hit and miss. And with that, I bid you adieu. Have a great day, and I hope to see you again on the next game.